Yo, what is up guys? Stelboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this one is a quick preview and prediction, I guess, for Jared Anderson versus Martin Bakole. This fight goes down on the 3rd of August and takes place on the undercard of Terence Crawford versus Israel Madrimov. And I have to say, this is one of the fights in which I'm looking forward to most. Jared Anderson is the guy here who is the highly touted prospect coming out of America. I mean, I don't think it's a far stretch to say that Anderson is the only hope in American heavyweight boxing right now. I know there's Richard Torres, but quite frankly, I think he's a knockout waiting to happen. There's a lot of stock being put in Jared Anderson, and for me, this is his first acid test. And I have to be honest, I'm not sure he passes it. Quite frankly, when this fight was made, I was very surprised because, I see it as a very dangerous fight, a very risky fight, and a fight in which I'm not sure he wins. So looking at it, I was kind of questioning why Top Rank would make this sort of fight or be willing to allow Anderson to take this fight. You know, I do wonder whether Top Rank are kind of getting a little bit jaded with Jared Anderson. Obviously, when he turned pro, he quickly gained a lot of hype. He was blowing over no-hopers. Then we saw a few signs of maybe a little immaturity to his game, to his psyche. You know, certain outside the ring comments, you know, saying he doesn't want to box for long, crying to Roy Jones about how it's hard to handle the pressure. Then there were the poor performances against Charles Martin, who, again, you would imagine if you're anybody, you're going to knock out Charles Martin. If you're this A-level prospect, you should be knocking out Charles Martin. You shouldn't really be having a competitive fight with him. Then there was the other fight against, is it Doeco, whatever his name was, from Belgium? You know, the guy who came up from Cruiserweight. That was another stinker performance by Anderson. And I think those two fights have kind of halted his momentum, halted his hype. So maybe Top Rank view this as a sink or swim type of affair for Jared Anderson. You know, if he wins, he's beaten a contender. I'm sure he would raise in the rankings, etc. Maybe they see it as a risk worth taking. Regardless, it's a hard fight. Martin Bakole, I've always seen as a very undervalued fighter in the heavyweight division. I think he's a very dangerous fighter, power in both hands, good punch variation. But I've always seen him as a fighter who's never realised his full potential, never realised his full talent. One of the reasons for that is, number one, he's not fought top competition on a consistent basis. Number two, he comes in sometimes in horrible shape. Well, many times he comes in horrible shape, carrying way too much weight. His last fight against Carlos Takam, I think he was about 300 pounds, you know? And that's not sustainable, especially like with a fighter like Bakole, who likes to put his shots together, who likes to throw the combinations. But that aside, the weight aside, and, you know, being a fat bastard aside, he does things very well. He collapses the pocket very well, creates space for himself to throw combinations on the inside. Stylistically, I'll tell you who he reminds me of, and I'm not saying he's as good. I'm just talking about in the ways they fight. They are somewhat similar. He's got a style similar to Riddick Bowe. Again, I'm not saying he's as good. They are not mutually exclusive. Having a style like somebody doesn't mean you're as good as somebody. But in the way he fights, he's really comfortable in the pocket. He's a good body puncher for a heavyweight. He puts his shots together very well. He's got a good snapping jab, decent straight right. But I think primarily he's really effective at mid-range and the inside. And he's a big lump. He's hard to move. People are going to look back and say, well, the fight with Michael Hunter, you know, he got outboxed and stopped eventually. True, but like Michael Hunter set such a high pace in that bout. That was a prime Michael Hunter who was really firing on all cylinders. And Hunter had to take shots in that fight. That wasn't an easy fight for Hunter. Are we saying this Anderson is as good as that Hunter? I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. Jared Anderson has never been battle tested. He's been caught a couple of times by Charles Martin. He felt those shots. What happens if Jared Anderson can't get Bakole's respect? If he can't offset him in any way? And what happens if he can't stop that forwards pressure from Martin Bakole? Are we fully convinced that Anderson can box a virtuoso and keep on his toes and keep Bakole at arm's length without fading? I'm not entirely convinced. He's boxed 10 rounds a couple of times, don't get me wrong, against Charles Martin and the Belgium fighter, but those were low-pace affairs. You would imagine that Bakole's really going to try and put it on him. And even in the clinch, Bakole is a taller, heavier man. I believe Anderson is 6'4". Bakole's 6'6", and he's a lot heavier. The clinch could be a horrible place for Jared Anderson in this bout. Anderson really needs to be fleet of foot in this fight. Keep on his toes. Keep behind that jab. Basically try to utilize his speed and fight almost in an ambush type of style. Bakole needs to keep that high guard up, which he does pretty well. He's got a good guard. And he needs to be trying to walk down Anderson. When I think about this fight, I just see a young prospect in Anderson getting manhandled by a much bigger, stronger man. That's the image I see being replayed in my head. Maybe Bakole comes in too out of shape and he can't keep close to Anderson. That is always a possibility. That is one thing I don't like about Bakole, is how he turns up in the ring. I think he turns up out of shape many a times. But if he's had a good camp, if his gas tank is on point to where he can push for pace, I think this is a damn dangerous fight. I really do. And I'm not convinced that if it does get nasty, if it does get horrible, I'm not convinced that Anderson has what it takes to really cope with that. I think Bakole has found his form. The only question for me about him is his weight, is his cardio, is his conditioning. But if he's got that right, I would pick Bakole in a heartbeat. With that being said, I'm still picking Bakole. I'm picking Bakole to win this bout. Possibly by late stoppage, maybe on points. Maybe he drops Anderson a couple of times. But I'm gonna take Bakole by stoppage. I'm taking Bakole by stoppage. What about you guys? How do you see this fight going? I am looking forward to it because although I'm picking Bakole, we're going to find out how good Anderson is. Because if we see him in there with a dangerous Bakole and he wins the fight, he's proven something, in my opinion. He's proven himself to be a contender at that point. Because right now I still see him as a prospect. This is a dangerous fight for a prospect to take. And I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.